This is a quick summary of my topic, Russia's war crimes on Ukraine. This video will go into in-depth detail on Russia's war crimes.
Let's bring in national security expert Jason Beardsley. He's the National Executive Director for the Association of the U.S. Navy. Jason, good to have you with us. So Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he believes accusations that Russia is committing war crimes in Ukraine. Let's take a listen.
We've seen very credible reports of deliberate attacks on civilians, which would constitute a war crime. We've seen very credible reports about the use of certain weapons.
So he's echoing what we're actually hearing from Ukrainians firsthand. If the U.S. believes the reports are credible, what should the U.S. do about it? What are the options?
Well, this is a pretty tough place that the United States has gotten itself into, because we've said very vociferously we are not putting troops into contact, and we're not going to enforce a no-fly zone. The most you've seen from the White House, and this has been a consistent message, is that we may supply some lethal munitions, or we may help in the humanitarian cause. But even once they come to the conclusion that there may be war crimes committed, the State Department doesn't have much wiggle room, based on what the White House has been saying, to do more than what they've already done. Sanctions, different things. But here's where they can start. We can start by stopping the purchase of Russian oil that's going on every day and fueling what the Russians are doing on the ground. That'd be the first move that I would look for.
Here's something else happening that's sort of intriguing. The U.S. is exploring how to send Soviet-era fighter jets to Ukraine. Help us understand, what's the strategy behind this? Why not just send more modern American jets?
Well, this is a sort of an indirect sort of support. So Poland has offered to place Russian-era or Soviet-era MiGs in the hands of Ukrainians. What they would look for is the United States to guarantee backfilling those aircraft with F-16s or something more modern from the United States arsenal. That's a pretty good deal. Even though they're Soviet-era, we're still flying Soviet-era airplanes as well. So if we can get equipment, lethal means, especially for air reinforcement to the Ukrainians, they've been pretty good at air defense on their own. They just need the gear and the equipment. Doesn't matter that it's a little bit old. They need to take control of their skies if we're not going to do it, we being the United Nations or NATO.
The latest we've heard of the situation there, a senior U.S. military official says about 95% of the combat power that Russia had initially lined up along the border for all those weeks has now been moved into Ukraine. We know this invasion is taking longer than Russia planned, but how much longer do you think Ukraine can continue to hold out and fight?
Well, Ukraine can hold out for quite a long time. We saw that in Iraq and Afghanistan with overwhelming superior numbers, forces, equipment, logistics. The United States was bogged down for 20 years, both in Baghdad and Kabul. And as you could see, the harassment, the interdiction, the guerrilla warfare, insurrection can go on for decades. What the Russians did was gambled that this would be a quick strike. They would get in there and cause the government to flee, install a pro-Putin government. That did not happen. Now they're stretched out. They have to supply every one of those tanks with fuel. They have to supply the troops with food, medical aid. That gets difficult, especially in the interior portions. So that's why you're seeing a lot more successes in the east, which was already sort of under nominal Soviet or Russian control, the Donbass region, and in the south, where they can supply from Crimea and from the ocean. That's another thing the United States can do, is patrolling the high seas outside the Dardanelles Straits in Turkey and in the Black Sea. We've got American vessels that are steaming from the Med that direction, and that's a good way to put pressure on Putin.
All right, Jason Beardsley, thanks so much for your analysis. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC.
So here is my political cartoon. Obviously, it is making light of the events in Ukraine and Putin's war crime, saying that Putin is purposely targeting innocent women and children. It shows Putin leading in a convoy of tanks, saying, "Remember, comrades, women and children are first," into Kyiv. This is saying that he's been purposely targeting innocent women and children and taking out the innocent, unarmed civilians in this country he's invading, which is indeed a war crime. So here are a few of my opinion questions. Let's start with the bottom one first. How do you view Biden's public handling on foreign policies? So the first two answers I have there are the most common answers. And then the third answer is the only answer I had that wasn't bashing Biden. So I believe he could be causing World War III. That was a very common answer I had. I do think that is a bit extreme, and I do not think that personally, but apparently quite a bit of people in this country do believe that he is causing World War III. He is quite bad at his job. That didn't really answer the question, but I got quite a bit of those. A very, very lot of those. And then, as good as anyone else could do, that's the only one I had that wasn't bashing Biden. I was kind of shocked by this, and you'll see why. Because on another question I had, no one really said anything good about Biden. So I wonder if this person that wrote this just didn't answer the other question. Now to the top one. What is the biggest issue in the U.S. right now? Of course, a lot of people said COVID. That was probably the most common one. Corrupt government, a little extreme, but I do see where they are coming from. Border crisis, that is a really big issue that I do agree with right there. We need to do something about our borders. And I'm glad that Texas governor is actually doing something that our president won't do. Gas prices was a really common one. I was, of course, me just getting a license really hits close to home. And then war in Ukraine, which is actually what my topic is over, which, of course, that's causing inflation in the U.S. Now, I had another question that I'm not showing on the screen right here, which is, do you side more with Trump or Biden when it comes to their foreign policies? Now, this one was a multiple choice question. Yeah, it was either I side with Trump was the one option, I side with Biden was another option, and undecided was another option. So the majority of people put Trump. The vast majority of people put Trump. There was a few undecided, which is where I assume the guy I was talking about earlier that said Biden's public handling, and he said he's doing as good as anyone. I assume that's that guy put. And I had nobody put Biden, that they side with Biden. So I thought that was pretty interesting, that our own country doesn't like our president. You know, that's a pretty sad thing that's going on in this world right now. So now I'm on to my sources. I used Fox News, CNN, and The Guardian. So I'm going to start with The Guardian. Well, let me explain to you how I chose my sources. I did one far left, one far right, and one as center as I could find. So The Guardian is the more center of the two. It could sometimes lean left or right, but for the most part, it is center. And then we got CNN, which was very, very far left. Would sometimes present facts, but even when it did present facts, it would twist them around to make them support the Biden's agenda. And we also got Fox News, which is the same thing as CNN, but to the left. It would be they will present facts, but twist them around and kind of bend them to support Trump's agenda or anti-Biden agenda. I tried not to favor one, but I did favor Fox News a little bit in my research paper.